hearing us this morning. Wanted to let you know that things are going very well at the MEC. At the end of next week, we plan on finishing all of the footings and foundations. And if you drove by the site yesterday, you may have noticed that we have something that has begun above ground. We have our first wall that is visible from the street that has begun to be constructed. Last week, you received an email from me regarding an issue that we were not expecting to find, which was extremely bad soil conditions in our western parking lot. As you remember, we had accepted the bid to do the entire western parking lot along with the road. And when we were voting last Tuesday, or when you were voting last Tuesday to purchase the property from the church, Councilor Paulson even brought up the question about soil conditions in the road. Where those issues came from that we have discovered at this point, initially we did soil borings through all of our property. We did a few soil borings in key locations to get an idea of where we had the most stable soil. From that point, we then determined where we wanted our building site, and we did many more soil borings at the site where our building is going to be. That way we were able to know exactly or get a better idea of what soil correction we would have to do under the building. We did not expend the funds at that point to do soil borings under parking lots. We had an idea of what we would find, and we knew it was not good for a building. We just did not realize that as we would start removing the dirt, we would find an old creek bed. If you go back to the satellite images from the 1930s, you can see that since the 1930s, Silver Creek has been moved. So that old creek bed is really poor soil. So our team has been working with our construction team and have come up with a plan. Initially, we were thinking that we had a much more extensive issue that we needed to deal with, but as we have gone along, it is not nearly as bad as what we thought it was. Yesterday, Britt, Sherry, and myself approved an emergency change order in the tune of $49,000 to do these soil corrections. So at next week's council meeting, we're going to be presenting that to you so that we can reset that $50,000 limit that we have. Now, this will do the soil corrections in that western parking lot. We have not gotten into the new street area or any of the other areas that we're going to be working on around the building. However, this change order that we are having is much more palatable than what we were thinking that it was going to be, and would like to thank all of our design team for all of the hard work that they put in last week in getting this done and coming up with a resolution for us. At this point, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Wirtz so that he can give you an update from KA's perspective.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, welcome everyone. So yeah, like Brian said, he does a very thorough job of, there's not enough O's and smooth than Mr. Silver talks, it seems. So, kind of an update to like Brian said, we got the main masonry wall going vertical right now. It's a grid 18, it's a load bearing with the arena. And coming October 19th, the precast is scheduled to start showing up. We're going to be starting, once next Tuesday's walkthrough as well, we'll give a more detailed layout going through, but we'll be starting in the southeast corner on area C of the convention and working back towards the backside of the arena to try to get the precast that goes down to the footings areas to get that backfilled before Mother Nature freezes up too tight. Things are progressing well. Everybody's been working hard on getting things turned around quickly, so besides the soil issue, things have been going good. So.
Can I ask one question on the soils issue, and maybe Eric or somebody will need to answer this one. Where you put the stuff through the infrastructure through the church area there or close to it with what I believe you put water and everything else in there in a loop system. What did the soils look like there when you were digging to put the water in?
They weren't too bad. They set up nice. They weren't the loon crap that we found at the other portions. They do seem to be set up nice. They are, clay mixtures, but not a lot of organics. The organics we did find, we did remove. But they said they are compacting well.
Anything to add
And the
there?
city's testing agency, NTS, Evan Johnson, was out there doing some field observations. He was also, when we encountered the bad soils, they did about 100 test pits. So we have a really good idea of where the bad, there's some good clay on site, and there's some organics that need to be removed that would cause some premature failure of your parking lot had we not corrected it, so.
Okay, I appreciate that report, and that sounds like you did the right thing, Brian, with the emergency order, you and Brett, so we'll take care of that at the council meeting.
Any other questions?
Anybody have any questions? Maya or Julianne, any questions?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I do have a question. Is this area that we're speaking of the new property we just purchased from the church?
Not the west parking lot, no.
No, Maya, this is north of the property that you just purchased. It's probably the last 4 rows of parking to the west parking lot. It's about the old practice field. It's an area of about 100 by 300, Pat, if I'm correct. That's a little bit higher number. I think it's a little less than that, but that was the area we encountered the bad soils. We encountered railroad ties, organics, and some peat.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Maya, did you have any questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen, for the report. Anybody else on the first part of the agenda? Hearing none, Britt, go ahead.
Thank you very much for coming. The next item on the agenda is Matt Reed and the contract for the 2021 professional services for the street improvement project.
Good morning. So what Britt handed out to you was the agreement for professional services. We want to get started on the 2021 street and infrastructure project that you moved ahead I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. I apologize for the late submittal. We were trying to meet with a few people prior to finalizing that, including public utilities and a couple, and I got set back a week with the situation I had at home, and I wasn't able to get out and meet with anybody. So my fault for it coming in last minute, but I certainly can take as much time as you'd like for me to walk through it. But what we basically have prepared is the agreement for professional services for taking that project through bidding. And I outlined the number of tasks that we're going to have to complete. And I put a proposed schedule in there, and then the fee, of course, is in there as well. So if anybody has any questions, I can walk you through in as much detail as you'd like.
Okay, thank you, Steve. If you would, since I'm a little bit new at this, just raise your mic like Steve did so I can call on you or interrupt through the Zoom system or whatever we have up there. Steve?
Just because we had some changing in our engineering department, how will this be different because we don't have the lead engineer? I'm just curious in general what that looks like now that we're living a different life.
It shouldn't really make much of a difference. Bill, actually, I've met with Bill a couple of times since then, and I presume that Bill is still going to be involved in some capacity as the Public Works Director. So I don't see anything really any different than, I don't want to say, Bill is involved at the level that he wants and needs to be during projects anyway.
Okay.
So I think everything is going to move along just fine.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else have questions of Matt? Anybody? Gary?
Just real quick, Matt, so you arrive at this total based, is it typically a percentage of the overall project, or how do you arrive at that?
No, I actually go through and figure out how much time I think my staff on an hour-by-hour basis is gonna take. As a percent of construction, though, I always check that as a reference, and we're at about 3%, if I remember right, something like that. But we usually try to, that's one mechanism of doing it. When I usually, 99.9% of the projects I do, I try to figure out what I think it's actually gonna take my staff to do the work, and that's how I come up with that number.
Carl, you had a question?
On the front page, item number 6, right at the top, it's Pine Mill Court from 3rd Street South to 3rd Street South. Is that an error?
Oh, it's a loop. So it
To
actually
3rd
starts,
Street South?
to try to define it, it just kind of loops around, so you're really going from 3rd to 3rd.
I see, okay.
Make sense?
Thank you.
Yep,
That's basically a horseshoe in there.
yeah.
Okay, anybody else have any questions, Maya or Julianne?
I do have one thing, if I may.
Go ahead, Julianne.
Okay, I'm fine moving it forward to the council. I would just like that included in our packet, if that's okay, since we're Zooming and we can't reference the document.
We had some trouble this morning with the internet and stuff here, getting the stuff put on online, Julianne, so I apologize for that, and but you will get it in your packet for the meeting.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Maya, any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much.
And may I ask, could we add one more thing to the agenda since we have Matt here?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
And this is-
You're in charge of this portion, so.
And again, this will be approved, the final approval will be at Tuesday's meeting. Matt wants to talk about the Midway Drive closeout. Because the project's not closed out yet, the state's holding funds that we've already spent that we can't get until the project's closed. So Matt, I'll turn it back over to you and I'll hand out your information.
Okay. Thanks, Britt. Britt's gonna hand out 2 documents. There's one that's a deduct, a negative change order, and then also a summary of costs on the project relative to budget and similar to what we talked about on 12th Avenue, thank you, when it came down to liquidated damages. And I want to, so like Britt indicated, your local road improvement program money, you've used almost the entire $1 million, so that's great. That's what we wanted. We wanted to make sure we ate all that was grant. So we were able to use it all with the exception of about $30,000. We have that. It's been spent. We can't get that money until the project is closed out. The project's done. It's been done. The only lingering piece that's been holding it up is some of the grass and there's a few bare spots out there. And so the contractor has been putting forth an effort this summer. I mean, I give them credit. Casper actually went out themselves with their own crews and reseeded it at least once. And that's after their subcontractor did it this spring as well. So they've been trying to get it to grow. It has made substantial improvement, and I think I would say it's better than 75% growth in most areas. There's a few areas where it's a little patchy, and so they had sent an email to me proposing that if the city would accept a $2,500 deduct and then be able to apply that money that they would have spent on the contractor to maybe getting some seed in the spring or doing a little bit of cleanup work in the spring, and talking with Britt and Bill, and I agree 100%. I think that's a fair, considering where the turf is at right now, I think that's a fair deduct. And I think in the interest of getting the project closed out and being able to access that extra local road improvement money, it would be minimal work on the part of Public Works or whoever ends up having to go do that. And I think the $2,500 would more than cover the cost to do that. So what I prepared is change order number 5 that shows that and reflects that $2,500 deduct. So the first thing that I was looking for was if the council agreed with that, and if it's something that we want to move ahead, then I can apply it to the deduct to the final payment to the contractor.
Okay, does anyone on the council have a question? Mr. Friedland?
Matt, my only question would be was this for where it didn't take, is that on residential areas or boulevard, public boulevard like area?
Mostly, all of the residential was sod.
Oh,
There's a small area in front of the church out there that wasn't sodded. That's a little sparse and probably going to need a little bit of work. And then there's one other yard just a little bit farther to the north. That actually might come in yet. It's coming in okay. But everything, most of the bad spots or the real bare spots are across Midway Drive between Midway and Highway 53.
Okay, not residential. Not on residential property. Okay, good thing.
Okay, Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, are we communicating with those two property owners that we are working on it? Or can we make sure we just let them know that we are aware that it's, I just think it's one of those little tiny things we can do as a city to let them know, yep, we're working on it and we'll check back next spring. I think this change is a good change order. I think it's a better use of everybody's time. And I'm sure Sherry would like to have one less thing to worry about. So I will move the change order forward.
Is there support for the change order?
I'll support.
It's been moved by Counselor Johnson and supported by Counselor Friedland for this $2,500 deduct change order. Any further discussion, Maya or Julianne?
No, thank you.
Okay, anybody else on the council? Okay,
No, I did hear everything, but I don't have any questions. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're hearing that. All those in favor of the change order amount of a deduct of $2,500, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we got all ayes, not opposed. I kind of messed that up, didn't wait long enough. Okay, that carries. Matt, we'll take that to the full council next week.
Okay? And then the last item, if you look at this sheet, the very last sheet in the handout that Britt sent you, this was based off, if you remember last spring, we were having a discussion on the project on 12th Avenue related to liquidated damages. And the council had asked that I prepare a summary sheet to kind of show where everything is at budget-wise with the project and to try to help make an educated decision on what you might want to do there. I use that exact same format again because that seemed to be pretty well received last time and you guys seemed to like that and have the detail that you needed to be comfortable with it. And so I use that exact same format to decide if there was anything that needed to be applied on this project. And so without going into the entire detail of everything, the bottom line is, if you look at the two bottom, I guess I'll call them clusters of numbers, you'll see a bracketed $633,000 number and some change, and then right below that, a bracketed $412,000 and some change. And what those two numbers represent is how far under budget we are on the Midway Drive project. And the top one is based on before we had bids, so that was based off of what our original estimates were. And then after all was said and done, what the actual bid came in, so our estimate was a little over 2 million. You remember the bid came in just a little under one, or a little over 1.8. So we are well under budget on this project, which is really good news. And considering that you had $1 million in grant funds on top of that, this project, for what we ended up being able to do up in that Midway Drive area, was really some good bang for your buck as a city. So what I'm asking here is just to make sure, because we need to know this so that we can note it someplace, is we did have some additional engineering fees. NTS had some additional testing fees, and those are listed here. And so typically those would be covered under your liquidated damage clause if you wanted to pursue it. It's up to you what you want to do, but I just need to know how you want to proceed with this so I can finalize the paperwork with the contractor.
Okay, is there any discussion on this, looking at this? Counselor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, this is perfect. This kind of information and providing it. Being under budget is a good thing, but I think that our contractors need to understand that we are going to hold them accountable. But if that accountability means they're under budget, then I think it's prudent that we're flexible with them. So at this point, I guess what you're saying is just leave it alone, everything's fine, we don't need to get any money back from them. That's in a nutshell, that would be our choice, is either to go after them legally and make them give us money back, or we just leave it alone and say thank you for finishing under budget, even though it took a little bit longer than it should have.
Exactly.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other discussion before we look, because I think we're going to look for a motion to close this out in the end for next week's, Counselor Friedland.
Can I just ask, so like, are the residents on Midway Drive, are they being assessed for the improvements there?
No.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, Maya or Julianne, any questions on this? You will get the paperwork, because this is another one that Britt handed out paperwork, and we will see that you get it for the meeting.
I'm good, thank you.
Hey, Maya, you good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. With that, Steve?
I will move that we close out as recommended by Matt.
Is there support? Okay, Counselor Johnson made the motion, Counselor Barnzelli made the second. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, motion carries, so we'll carry that forward, Matt, next week, so we can get this closed out and get the rest of the balance of the money.
Okay, thanks. And again, I apologize for the, for the late submittals. I'll do a better job on that.
Go ahead, Brett. Oh, okay.
Item on the agenda is the request to purchase a 2020 Ford Ambulance F-550 4x4 Super Duty chassis from Premier Specialty Vehicles. And this would be using our CARES funding, the COVID money that we received from the legislature back in.
Okay, with that, we can either just look at the paperwork here and make a motion to move forward with this purchase, or if you'd like a discussion ahead, that's fine, whichever you prefer. Counselor Johnson,
Excuse me, I do have a question.
go ahead. Go ahead,
How
Maya.
much money is left in that CARES Act, the money that we received? How much is left in that?
Approximately $400,000 before the ambulance purchase.
So we'll have about
And
200 and some
What was the cost
thousand.
of the ambulance?
Cost is $226,090.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm guessing we'll have about 200 and some thousand left to go, and we have,
And we haven't got our unemployment numbers yet.
Yeah.
The state knows that the cities are crying and screaming for this, the numbers. We want to know what we need to pay, but we haven't got that information.
okay, but we should have enough to cover those numbers from preliminary,
Yes,
correct?
definitely, yes.
Okay. Okay, anybody else have any questions on that ambulance? Counselor
do.
Friedland? Or go ahead, is this Counselor Paulson?
Thank you so much. Britt, what was the total amount that we received from the CARES grant?
$635,000.
Did you
Okay.
catch
And
that?
then was there anything that the fire department received for the CARES grant, from the CARES grant for their funding?
There was actually 3 CARES grants that we received. One large one went to the city directly, that was $635,000. The fire chief got one that he applied for the first ambulance that we purchased, that was $250,000, I believe. And then he got a small one for $62,000.
Okay. I would actually be more comfortable if we could sit down and actually have a meeting regarding these totals, where they went, and have a larger, broader discussion before we move forward.
We may be, Julianne, on a time frame for ordering this, so that's the question mark. So it gets under that COVID dollars, because we have until, what, the end of November? So we can have this discussion, but we need to act on it so they can get this ambulance ordered. I don't think we're going to be short of dollars at all, but we certainly can have that discussion, or we could have it put together for Tuesday's council meeting. I think Britt could do that.
And there's a report I have to send into the state, and I actually am working on this month's right now, or August right now. I can send that to the council before the council meeting, so everybody can
Okay.
see where the funds went.
Would that be satisfactory, Councillor Paulson, if she puts those numbers together for next week's council meeting?
Yeah, excuse me, I would appreciate those numbers, but I would also appreciate a larger discussion with all of us to discuss where those dollars, where the city should allocate the rest of those dollars. So far, we really haven't, as a council, been given much of that information. And I think it's important that we be transparent with what those funds are being used for.
Okay. How about if we do this? Have Britt put the numbers that she has so far together for next week's council meeting, and then at the council meeting, you can decide on a date in October here or the end of September to look at the balance on that, and then we can make determination. Would that be satisfactory?
That would be satisfactory, but then I will probably be making a motion to have a meeting. I don't know if it would be a special meeting or putting it on the next committee agenda for this discussion.
That's perfectly fine.
Support for discussion.
Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I think we also, it's been quite a while since we've had a formal discussion about the state of emergency and that stuff. So I'd like to, if with Councillor Paulson's permission, that also be added in as part of that COVID money discussion. I just would like, might not be much to talk about, but I'd like to be on the record that we have had that discussion yet again about what the city's doing to be compliant with the governor's orders, what we're doing within the city to keep our staff safe, that kind of stuff.
Okay, I have no objection as chairperson today. Does anybody else have any objection if we add that to the potential meeting after next week's council meeting?
I'm comfortable with that. So if we'd need a formal motion, I would make that motion, including Councillor Johnson's addition.
Britt, do you want a formal? I don't think we need one right now. We'll just add it. We'll just yeah, we'll just add it to the meeting next week and then move from there.
I would rather have a special meeting because there is a timeline that I have to have hard numbers committed by November 15th, else they take the money back. So we need to.
Yep. Well, and if I might.
Go ahead, Councillor Johnson.
I think why I'm supporting Councillor Paulson's motion to do this is from time to time, when we've asked to talk about this before, it's either gotten forgotten or pushed off. So I will stick with my motion that, and if it's to set a special meeting, I'd like to have that special meeting today, by the end of business today, so that we can get those on our schedules. But I understand why Councillor Paulson is making a motion like that, so.
Okay, Pam.
Thank you, Mr. Baraboo. How about next Tuesday morning? And it can be discussed prior to the council meeting, or is that too soon?
I don't have an objection to it. I may or may not be here, but I can come in on Zoom if we're going to put it on Zoom, because I do have a surgical procedure coming up,
I
so.
would be fine with Tuesday.
Anybody else have an objection to next Tuesday morning, prior to the council meeting? Okay.
9 o'clock?
I don't have an objection to that, but I would also like to add one more item then if we're going to conduct a special meeting, and that item would be to add into the discussion dollars that VITA has received for the downtown renovation grant. I would like us to go over that program and the financing regarding the program.
Okay, anybody have an objection to that being added to the special meeting? Hearing none, we have a motion then on the floor, is that correct, Pam? Counselor Paulson made the original, and Counselor Johnson supported. So if there's any discussion, further discussion? Counselor Friedland.
This is, well, I mean, I had a little bit of confusion clarified, I think, because we had already purchased an ambulance, so this is our second one.
Yeah.
And so out of that 600,000 some odd dollars, we've put out about, well, 226 plus 257. Then have there any other been peripheral expenses beyond that, or?
Yes, our first report that we were required to put to the state was from March 20th through through August 30th. And so then we had, and it would, when I give you the report, it'll make much more sense. There's 5 categories you have to put things in. A lot of it was medical expenses, which would be gloves, hand sanitizer, Tyvek suits, face mask. It was quite a bit of it. And then staff furloughs,
Okay,
staff
thank you.
time and staff.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so we will have that report prior to next Tuesday's council meeting from Brett. Okay, if there is no further
Do we
discussion.
need to vote on that?
Yes.
Yes, we do. So if there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the special meeting for Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. We've decided. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. All those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Go ahead, Brett.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is discuss Jarrett and Associates lobbying services. Their contract has expired for the year.
Okay, if you have it, it's item number 4. They're looking to continue the same amount, 3,000 per month or 36,000 for the year. I believe that's identical to the last 2 years we've done this. We still have outstanding things there. And we're not going to hear anything on this bonding stuff, it looks like, until probably late September now, because they're on a hold pattern right now, if you looked at what's going on with the state. I think it's imperative because of the dollars that we have, and we're still in a running for this public safety money, and a couple other smaller things that are out there that we can continue with Jarrett and Associates for the next year. That's my opinion as Vice Mayor. Anybody else have discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, my only concern is that everything was locked down for basically 2 months. There was no interaction at the state capitol. There was no lobbying. We're not paying our city band. We're not paying the orchestra. We're not. So I'm curious to know what we paid for March 15th through, say, June 15th, and if we should not have some sort of credit for those 3 months. And I know how it works is different, but there were a lot of things that were different over the summer when it comes to lobbying and the legislature itself. So I just want to make sure we're being prudent. And again, I believe when we'd had this discussion last year, we asked for very regular updates and going back and doing some checking in emails. There have not been a ton of updates, partly because there's been nothing to update, which then goes to my point of what are we paying for over the summer. So I'd like to hear from other counselors and see if there's a different perspective I need to be looking at.
Okay, does anybody else have a discussion on this Jarrett and Associates lobbying fee? Just speak up if you do.
I do have a comment. I do agree with Counselor Johnson that when things are not happening or going through this year with COVID, we are paying them monthly. Is that something that could be changed to when he is actually doing something for the city?
You can approach, but knowing what I know from lobbyists, because we use lobbyists at RAMS also, You know, we've done, the monthly fee is the way they go. They don't go on a piecemeal basis because they dedicate their time to the city of Virginia and a couple others that they put on their agendas. I have not seen a piecemeal one in all the years I've been on a council for lobbying. And any other comments on that? Councilor Freeland?
Yeah, I don't think that everything halts. I mean, I don't know that definitively, but I know that we've gotten some communications from Jarek and Associates with regard to ongoing conversations he's had. And I don't know that that's only when they are at the Capitol or whatever. I'm assuming that there's ongoing networking and communications that are occurring on behalf of the city. I don't know that definitively, but I would think so, given the contract that they have with the city.
Any other further discussion? I know they have been in contact behind the scenes with legislators. I know Councilor Lizagard has gotten conversations with them from the House side. I don't know how much. We can ask them for another quick report if you would like. Britt, you have a communication network with them also, correct? Have you heard any other things behind the scenes? That's the only one I've heard of, but there may be more.
Yeah, I know that they have met with them behind the scenes. It might be worth to ask at least what was done. The part of what not just them as lobbyists, but what lobbyists do is the dinners, the golf outings, the lunches. It's not always at the Capitol. So there are things that happen behind the closed doors that we don't see.
Okay, is there any other discussion before we look for a motion to approve? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion from anyone on the floor to continue with the services and still get a report from them in the near future?
I would make that motion.
Okay, Councilor Freeland, is there support? Anybody have a support? And one last time, anybody have a support?
I guess I'll support for a little bit more discussion.
Okay, Steve, I appreciate that very much. Go ahead and continue with your discussion.
We were just here a year ago, and we were here 2 years ago, and we were here 3 years ago with this exact same discussion about, we understand what they do, but for $3,000 a month, we do not get a lot of communication for us. It would be really nice, and I thought we had written into the last contract that we get a monthly update that says, this is what we did this month. We attended six golf outings, 3 lunches, and met directly with your representatives 4 times. I guess that's what I'm really looking for the accountability for $36,000 a year, because when the phrase behind closed doors get used, I get very nervous. And I understand that's how things are done at the state level, and deals are made and people scratch each other's backs. But when it comes to what I have to do here, I want to be able to tell the taxpayers that, yes, I know that they met, in the month of August, they met 16 times, or no, in April, they didn't meet with anybody because it was the pandemic, but we know they were doing work in their office. And I thought that's how we had worded the contract last year, to have that regular communication. And I just Googled Jarek, or not Googled, but did a search in our email for Jarek. And when you do that, the email, they go communicate with Britt, and then Britt forwards us the emails as the updates come up, and they are not regular. They are semi-random. So I guess I would really want to emphasize in this contract that they set a reminder in their calendar that on the 30th of the month, they send Britt an email that says, and I don't need specifics, but I would just really like so that we can prove accountability for the $36,000 that they send you, say, yes, we met on your issue 3 times. You know what? Does that make sense? What we're asking for? And I know that when they go to these meetings, they're talking a lot, but
Just us. They're talking about a lot of different things.
They're getting $36,000 from several entities, and I guess that's kind of my point too. Is it's a private business, good for them. I'm glad they can manage that, but just to give us some idea that they are working for us, other than, yep, nothing's gonna happen in August because it's a blackout period because of bond sales at state, which is great, it's nice to know that, but, you know, what else did they had 6 meetings where we did discuss and again, it's about accountability, that we're spending $36,000 a year, and still some days we're a little closer to the Public Safety Center than others, and I know this is the one thing we made that, past that last year, that this was our priority at the Capitol. And I guess I'd like to make sure that we continue on that path. Thank you.
Okay, with that, Mr. Attorney Brian Lindsay, we can put some more teeth into the contract than we have currently. Is that's a possibility if we move forward with this? Okay. Britt, did you have any
I
more?
do, I just want to point out that in the resolution from last year, we asked for quarterly updates. So not that I'm trying to defend them. And remember, the mayor is with them today, tomorrow, and so he is out with Jarek's actively speaking to people.
Then I would ask that when those come in, if they could be very specifically defined as this is your quarterly update from Jarek and Associates, so that when someone asks me, I can do my my email search and print those out if they need them. Thank you.
We certainly can have that added to a contract, and Britt, you can work with Brian to put together an actual contract with Jerk and Associates if we approve this today. Okay. Any further discussion from anyone? Maya? Julianne? Okay. We lose them? Yeah. Do you want to comment while Britt is getting him back on the line, Councilor Friedman?
Sure, I was just gonna say, Sherry, I'm assuming that this is an annual contract that's been budgeted. Okay.
Okay.
And I agree that there should be an addendum that allows us some kind of a periodic update specific to the networking that's occurred on behalf of the city of Virginia. That would be very helpful.
I'll just make one comment on this. It's not related to Jarek and Sons, but it's related to, we use the Costin Group for the Rams organization, and they do give us either a written report to the board meetings. They try to do it once a month, but sometimes it ends up every other month if we don't have a meeting, but we do get reports. So I think Steve's point is well taken that we put it in the contract.
Are we back? I can hear you. Okay.
Okay, good. Thank you for waiting.
Oh,
I'm going to put you on pause here.
Okay, are we back so everybody can hear us now? We do have a motion and a second on the floor to move forward with some caveat changes on the Jarek and Sons contract for 2021 that Britt and the attorney will put together. So for the $36,000 with the suggestion of Counselor Johnson and Counselor Paulson. With that, is there any further discussion on this? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Who are we missing? Maya?
I'm still thinking.
Oh, okay. That's
But I'll
okay.
go with I'll go with aye.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, any those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Next item on the agenda is the resolution for the proposed 2020 tax levy collectible in 2021.
Okay, Sherry, did you want to say anything on that, or you have a mic there?
There's really not too much more to add. This is what we discussed last,
And this is with a 2% increase
Correct.
for that we can pare down, but we need this in by the 30th of September, correct?
yes, thank you.
Okay, any discussion before we look for a motion? Okay, hearing none, I'm looking for a motion to approve the preliminary budget so Sherry can get it in for the 30th of September.
I'll move to approve.
Okay, who wants to move here? Second, okay, Gary. Okay, Julianne made the motion. I believe it was Julianne. And seconded by Councilor Friedlip. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, waiting for the rest of the ayes. Oh, we lost them again. Okay, can everybody hear me now? Julianne, are you available? Maya, are you available? Just not hearing them at this time? Okay, now that our technical difficulties are done, can everybody hear myself as chairperson today? I think we're okay, Britt, are we? Okay. I believe we, Pam, if I'm correct, we have a motion on the floor and a second for the approval of the preliminary city budget, not budget, city levy for the tax year of be 2021, wouldn't it, not 2020? Yeah, payable in 20, okay, collectible, okay. So for 6,176,548, is that correct, Sherry? Okay. Is there any further discussion on this? Needs to be in by September 30th. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Britt, go ahead with the next item.
Next item on the agenda is the personnel portion of the meeting, and the job descriptions are in there for the permit technician and the senior administrative assistant.
Okay, these are just drafts, correct?
They're just drafts, yep.
Okay.
We had discussed at a previous meeting that the permit technician would be the next position that we would look to be filling to assist with the inspections that are required as part of the codes and ordinances that we have. They've been, this person that I anticipate that would fill those positions already doing all the gas inspections for the city, has been doing them for the last couple of years. Has also been assisting the building official on some small minor inspections such as roofing, garages, footings, foundations.
Okay, we need to look like we have the permit technician under this to approve looking for approval of the job descriptions at this point in time. Is there a motion to move forward?
Last
Oh,
advantage.
okay, we lost Counselor Beyondich again.
Back. Jeez.
Okay,
Back.
okay. So do I have a motion for moving the job description of the permit technician to the full council meeting next Tuesday?
I have a quick question if I may.
Sure, go ahead, Julianne.
Under the permit technician, we've got a minimum education experience requirements, and then down below that, it just says preferred education and experience, and there's nothing listed under that. Does that item need to be removed, or does it need to have further clarification down below?
I would suggest remove it unless there's somebody else that has an idea or opinion of something else we'd like in there. It was a typo on my part. I obviously was copying another job description.
No problem. Just wanted to point that out.
Sorry about that, yes.
Okay, good job of reading there, Julianne.
Very good job, thank you.
I missed that one. So, okay, I'm still looking for a motion to move this to the council on Tuesday. Does everybody want more time to look at this, or we can just bring it up and put it on the agenda for next Tuesday?
I'll move that we forward the technician to the council meeting.
Is there support? Councillor Johnson made the motion to move forward, and Councillor Barnzelli supported. Any further discussion?
This, excuse me if I may, is this just for the permit technician approving of the job description?
Yes, it is at this point. We have the second one.
Thanks, I just didn't hear.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries to move the job description forward. We have a second item on this, the review of job description, the senior administrative assistant. Britt, do you want to go
Yes,
over
I do want to
that?
talk about this one a little bit. As part of the further reorganization of the engineering, or the former engineering department, or however we're going to call that department, I think at this time, I would just like to talk about the job description. We do have Chief Lewis here to talk about maybe a little bit of the fire component of this job. However, I don't know that it's necessary that we approve the description today, but I just want to talk about it, have it ready for when we are ready to pull the pin on this position. This one was deemed that when the rental code went into place, this job was absolutely necessary because we need somebody highly organized and skilled to keep everybody going in the right direction. About the fire side, what you guys are looking for?
Morning.
Microphone, please.
All right, good morning, thank you. Yeah, just as Brett said, there's so many operations that our fire marshal and our building code official works on basically simultaneously. There's so much overlap if you kind of view it as a Venn diagram, you know, where you have those overlaps between your fire code, building or your code official and your fire marshal. Many times those are overlapping because where there's fire concerns, there's also code concerns. So this person in this office would be really an office administrator type or a business office manager type more than they would, you know, a administrative assistant. This would really be managing that office to do organizing, scheduling. So for example, a code official would come in and have an organizational chart. Okay, you're going to have, you know, 1, 2, 3 inspections today. Fire marshal, you're going to do a follow-up on this complaint, which also has been reviewed by the code official. And a lot of times there's a lot of back and forth when you find out that something that the fire marshal's been working on is also something the code official's been. So this would bring an organization and a unity to that office where they could really work a lot more cohesively than currently. There's just more and more work that is coming down with the property maintenance code and then with the rental code being added on top of that. So.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Looks like we have some more comments. Councillor Johnson.
Mayor, How would this fit in with the potential planning director person? What does that look like?
That's part of why I would like to wait, I mean, just discuss the job description and kind of wait, because this will be also that person's secretary. So it'd probably be, while the planner is a AFSCME position, and this is also an AFSCME position, it's really not a managerial, but they will work closely together. So we should wait to get somebody that could work, that we know is going to work very well. And the planner should have input on who we're hiring in that position, as well as Chief Lewis and the fire marshal and the building official.
Thank you for that clarification.
So basically, today, we're not looking for any approval to move this forward, just to work on this description some more?
I'm just looking for information, if there's anything I'm missing, or is it too elaborate? Is it, I know Chief and I feel we needed to be very detailed, because we are looking for a very detailed person, so it's a specific skill set we're looking for, somebody that's really highly task-oriented and detail-oriented.
And this would help reduce some of the load work down the way for our fire marshal, et cetera, and those positions that are going to have to enforce once we put the zoning code in
I don't know
place.
if it's a good or bad thing, but I think we've had more condemnations in the last 2 years than we've ever had. And like I said, I don't know if that's good or bad, but that is a process, and that does take time. And that's coordination with the building official, the fire marshal, the city attorney, and so I need that person that can walk it through those steps.
Why don't we, as a council, look this over more carefully? If you have any input to this, to bring it back to Britt. And at this point, we'll just leave it in the administrative hands.
Thank you.
Okay. Britt, I'm going to have to step aside for just a minute. Can you go on with the street and alley stuff?
Absolutely.
Can I just ask a question on that?
Oh, sure.
On the job descriptions? So I guess like one of my concerns was when we were passing the ordinances, which are necessary and essential for what we're trying to accomplish in the city, was the potential for additional personnel being needed to address all of those additional issues that would come to be. So like would this be posted? I guess, you're looking for a specified skill set from a person that can coordinate what needs to be done. Is this going to be posted internally to existing people okay.
Have to, by contract, post it internally for 7 days.
Okay, but then the potential exists for us to not necessarily fill the skill set we're looking for. If somebody can just slide into that position.
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
We have the ability and the I guess it's management rights to determine that if this person, just because you've been here for 28 years doesn't mean you automatically get the position. You have to have the skill set and the role desired. Or the way the contract reads, meet them within 6 months. And some of these skills, I don't know that you could.
You have right of assignment as an administrator. It's not somebody who just can move into that position.
Yes.
And I guess, yeah. Then in terms of like that department then, so we're revising that department. Is there going to be so are we conceiving that the city planner may have supervisory responsibility and there'll be a hierarchy of employment in that department, or not necessarily? Will they?
Yes and no. I mean, they won't be a supervisor, but they will have guidance.
Meaning like this senior administrative assistant will answer directly to the city planner as opposed to Bill or Christina or
Actually refer to the building official.
building official. And that would be Bill. Okay. All right.
But also work with the city planner. If the city planner has a letter that needs to go out today, or they need an agenda done for planning.
This
and
is kind of
zoning,
the office manager of the new department.
That's exactly, without using the word manager, that's exactly what the.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anybody else have any further discussion before we move on? This is not to be acted on today, so just do the review and put your input back to Brett. Okay?
The next item on the agenda is review the quotes for the recycle pile crushing. We had directed Public Works staff to get quotes to crush the concrete up on our north side demo site. Memo from Bill Hennis and 2 quotes.
Recommending the Yulin Brothers quote at $117,500.
And it looks like from this memo also that the public utilities will participate in 50% of the cost. So
Absolutely. Public Utilities pays 1/2.
one half of this, so our cost would be about $60,000, a little less, 50-some thousand.
The desire to do this is because we reuse that material. Once it's crushed, then we use it to fill potholes.
And it saves us money in
Gives
the
us a
end.
lot of money in the end, yes.
And I believe, Sherry, we have this in the budget, correct? Yep, maintenance, okay. Okay,
I'll move that contract with Uland.
okay, is there support?
Or
Okay, is there any further discussion? It's been moved and supported. Counselor Frieden moved and Counselor Johnson supported on the crushing contract with Hewlin Brothers. Any further discussion on this? Sure. Go ahead, Joanne.
This, the west of the golf course, or to the east? Is it more up on the hill, closer to Ninth, or is it closer to the highway?
It's up on the top of Honda Hills, I believe, is where we crush and leave that materials. So it is right in between 53 and 9th Avenue. It's about halfway between. Counselor Johnson.
is this related to the discussion about the gates and the extra dumping?
We are still working on a plan.
Okay, but this is all part of that, and that's why this is a little bit more this year, is because there's a lot more.
A lot more.
Okay.
there. And it could be steam conversion. I mean, there's a lot of things that could cause this to happen.
Right.
We had a tremendous building season. A lot of people, replace their garages. This could be their,
So, but it is all, it's part of that bigger picture that
part of that
the
bigger
staff
picture
is working
discussion that
on.
we need to have about the,
Okay,
get open to public or not.
all right, thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution contract for Hewlin Brothers on the recycling materials, so signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, any of those opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Now I will let you take over, Britt, so I can take a quick break here.
No problem. The next item on the agenda is the request from a citizen for a painting of crosswalks on Second Avenue and Fifth Street. I'm assuming that's south, but
I guess after I read the email, I drove Second Avenue, and there are no crosswalks up Second Avenue, and I'm curious to know, there are no stops. There's one at 8th Street, and there's not a stopped crosswalk or cross until you get to Chestnut Street. So I guess I'd be curious to know if that's by design or if it's just something we haven't really thought about in the past, because I live on 3rd Avenue, or 8th Street and, 3rd, and there's quite a lot of children in our neighborhood. I know that the buses usually don't extend their cross arms when they're on 2nd Avenue. That was something that concerned me when I saw that, so I guess I'd defer to the staff to know if there's a reason or what that means.
well, that's a great question, and Bill Hennis is on his way here. So maybe if we could skip over this one and ask when Bill Hennis gets back, if that's amenable to the rest of the council.
I'd be comfortable with waiting till Bill got here.
Juliana Meyer, are you guys okay with that? Waiting until Bill comes to talk about the crosswalks?
That sounds great.
Okay, thank you, thank you. So we'll jump down to item number 9, review the joint powers agreement with the Evelyn, Virginia Airport Authority. Because we changed our ordinance, now our joint powers agreement needs to be updated to match the ordinance.
If I might. So that was primarily, again, to put us statutorily accommodating, I guess, to the composition of the authority, and also to add counselors to the authority, and also to make sure that the authority has residence requirements.
Correct,
Those are kind of the three facets that
correct.
are in the reorganization of the authority.
Another important thing that the bylaws do is it does dictate the officers, which was also part of the ordinance change, that one of the officers will always be from one of the cities. So we will alternate the lead positions.
And I guess like, if I have any concern, it would be, and there's been some discussion with regard to knowledge, with regard to, the workings of an airport. And, I certainly don't have that, and I don't know how many city councilors will have that, and 4 people will be on the authority that have really no working knowledge of that. So that's a bit of a concern for me, but not enough so that I think we need to, I guess what I'm saying is when the development of that or the selection of those people is made, that needs to be taken into consideration. There are people that have that experience and background with the operations of an airport, so that the other people on there have somebody to turn to answer those questions. Because there's going to be at least potentially 4 out of the 6, I think, that probably will have no knowledge whatsoever on the operations of the airport. That's my only concern.
Okay, did we make a decision at all on that item when I had to leave?
On the crosswalks, we were waiting for Bill Hennis to get here. He's on his way.
Oh, okay, fine. Counselor Johnson?
Thank you. Counselor Freely, I thought about that, and then I thought, 4 years ago, I got elected to city government and didn't know a thing about budgets, and that's what the staff are for. And I think that from everything I've learned about the airport and how it's running, that having the staff that the airport commission would supervise, they're the experts. They bring the information to whoever's sitting on the board, present it in a factual manner, and then hopefully there's enough information there, or we can ask questions to make good decisions. And I feel that's what we do on a regular basis in this room is, we don't know anything about building large buildings, so we hire people. They come and give us their best recommendations, and then we ask questions. And I think that's maybe what this commission has been missing, is there are so many experts that know exactly what should happen, but there's nobody there that knows government. And I think we're trying to find the balance between running an airport, but also running a government entity. So I think that this is a valid thing as we move forward. My question is, when do we need to change the makeup of that board based on the ordinance change and then this change?
This joint powers agreement says October 1st is the date of the new change.
So as
Have to
of,
appoint,
okay, so as of September 31st, there will be, none of the current board members will be on there. They will have to be reappointed October 1st.
correct.
Okay, thank you for the
The way the
clarification.
board would be made up then is 2 council members from each city and 1 other member that the council appoints. So whoever we decide.
Okay.
Charlie, Councilor Beyondich wants to speak.
Oh, okay, Counselor Beyondich, go ahead.
I guess Mr. Friedlich's concerns, because when we talked about having 2 counselors on there, I would have absolutely no knowledge of what goes on with an airport. So I'll say it right now, I don't want to be on that because I don't have the foggiest idea of what they need to move forward with what they're doing. So I kind of voice that same concern that having 2 counselors from each city who have no knowledge of that. I'm not sure how that's going to work. Thank you.
Counselor Friedland?
If I can add, I guess, like, my only concern would be, like, and having sat in on a half a dozen of the meetings with relatively recently, I mean, there were, like, some of the people that were on the authority said there were complaints that came forward, and I even said I didn't necessarily think that that was a proper term. There were concerns that came forward, and I just want to make sure that even those that are on the, and have been serving on the authority, that this whole process wasn't initiated in any way, shape, manner, or form from my perspective because of any perceived mismanagement or perceived malfeasance or anything like that. I know there was some record-keeping concerns that arose, and there were other concerns that had to be addressed, but I just want to assure them that, you know, we appreciated the time and effort that they put into the authority and the commission and the management of the airport, and I think it was timely for a look into and a reorganization of such on behalf of both cities, and to have more involvement from counselor's perspective. So I just want to make sure that that's understood, that this whole process was initiated to make us statutorily accommodating, so to speak, and to bring in more eyes from the city perspective as opposed to outside personnel, so to speak. So in any event, I think it's in the best interest of both cities to have it reorganized as we're anticipating to do so.
Okay, with that, I'm going to make a comment on this, if I may. I do not like this new process with 2 and 2 and 1. Actually, it's 1 for me, so it's 6 members, correct, on this, which is an even number, which creates some conflict. In the past, we had even numbers on that airport commission when I used to be liaison. The knowledge base for any counselors is going to be tremendous. They're going to have to do a huge learning curve because they've got to learn all the federal stuff, all the state stuff, all the grants work. If you don't have staff people and people understand this, it's going to be tough to keep up and keep compliance with all these grants because they're all grant related. 90% of that money comes from either the feds or the state or through the state. The other 10% is borne by the cities. So I have a concern that we don't have enough individuals that are from the general public on this. And we don't have any odd number, and that's my concern. I'm just voicing that because I did sit there for a number of years as liaison, and I'm of the opinion, what if we don't get enough counselors to volunteer for this? What do we do then? I'm not going to go back on it. I don't want to either, because it's a lot of work when you do this. So I've got enough other issues to do as a counselor and some other boards that I'm on. But that's my opinion, so. And Carl, you were on that for a long time, too.
How many years were you there? Probably 5? And Don Cipla was president of it then.
That is correct.
Now Don, or his son is Matt. So I don't know, it's a full-time job.
Now that we've voiced our concerns, we've already had the first reading on this, correct? So this is the second reading, correct? Coming up next.
Already passed the
council?
ordinance.
Yeah, oh, we did already, okay. All right, so we'd have to go back to ground 1 if we do want to do changes again. But that's my opinion on this. So what do we need to actually do on this? Just agree to this, Britt, right now?
Yes.
Do we need a motion is what we're looking for?
Motion. Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for a motion to move forward. Councillor Johnson.
I guess I would have to have a different opinion than you, Councillor Bearaboo, that the staff do the work. We pay people to do the budgeting, we have both, in this case, the airport would have 2 city administrators, 2 city attorneys, working on managing and making sure that we as the board are getting the accurate information and we would be able to ask those questions. So short of volunteering to be on the board, I think that if we allowed the people who have the jobs to do their job, the board is going to do what we do here in this room. We ask questions, we approve or disapprove, and we move forward. So the other question I would have is that if we need new people appointed October 1st, do we need to, once this step is completed, do we need to make a motion to post for new openings on the commission, or what's that process look like to fill those positions?
I usually start that right away. The opening actually ends December 31st for the,
But
we would have
the
to.
agreement, it just starts October 1st
Right.
based on this. So we would need to do that almost immediately
Yeah,
then.
so this week there'd be an ad in the paper.
Okay, and anybody who meets the criteria for the city of Virginia would be eligible to apply, and then we would have, this is a mayoral appointment, or is it what kind of appointment is it?
It's by the council, as all the, except for the HRA one. It's the only one that's mayoral.
Okay, so then we would probably, depending on, we could have interviews or
Yep.
there's a procedure to follow that we always follow.
Yes.
Okay. All right, I will move this, what are we changing here? The joint powers agreement forward. Thank you.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? Okay. Hearing none, this is a motion. Do we have a second to that motion, Pam? We did not. So is there a second to the motion from Counselor Johnson? Is there a second?
I'll second that for further discussion if I could.
Okay, so it's been moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlib. Now, is there any further discussion on this change?
I could, if I could.
Go ahead, Counselor Friedlib.
How did we arrive at that the makeup of the commission was best suited to 2 counselors from each city as opposed to 1? It just, that's one of my concerns. I know we can learn what we need to learn, but there's already people that are experienced in this and have sat on that commission and do a good job on that. And I'm just wondering if we should have had more people from the airport as opposed to the city. I mean, we're kind of city heavy is what I'm feeling. I don't know if that's a legitimate concern, but that's, having sat in on those meetings, I mean, there's a lot of conversations that were had that are knowledgeable, experienced people with regard to the management and operations of an airport that was interesting to hear. And having 4 out of 6 people on the commission now with only 2 others, I'm not sure if that's the proper makeup. I think that's what you're alluding to too, Charlie, it seems to me. But I guess the reorganization is necessary. It seems like we're a little bit heavy on city involvement as opposed to outside experience involvement. I don't know if it's to the point where we want to revise that or at least have further discussion with regard to that, or is it time to rearrange it in the fashion that we're moving towards? I'm a little reluctant about that because, like I said, having sat in on that and the information that was being provided to me, most of the time I was just listening and shrugging because I wasn't knowledgeable about what they were talking about. And if you have 4 people there that are not knowledgeable and only 2 trying to convince you, it could be difficult to make those kinds of decisions that need to be made. So that's just for discussion purposes.
So, that's an interesting point that has been brought up. The financial issues that we had with this authority, I had no issue with what was done to correct that, because that, I believe, has been corrected now, correct, Brett?
Yes.
And the knowledge going forward, we're still going to need the individual to take the minutes, do all that kind of stuff.
I would like to point out that we have 3 commission members. 2 of them are not residents of
That's
Virginia.
correct.
Only 1 is. So we could not appoint the other 2 anyway to the board. I think that's kind of why we did 2 council members, because we know those people are residents of Virginia. And we have a very hard time getting people to fill the position for airport authority that live in Virginia.
We sat for, just to go back in time, we sat for many years where we could not get a quorum and stuff on that commission because we couldn't get the people there, or they didn't apply for the position on that particular joint powers board. We had a tough time. And this goes back in history on this. And we sat for a long time where we were always short members on that board. But that's just a little history. Okay.
If I could, I guess I would say, like, from my perspective as a counselor, I don't know that it's not because of the work involved. I just wouldn't feel like competent to be a part of that with the kinds of decisions that need to be made. I think I could learn it, but.
Yeah, that you should, when the mayor asks that question to the council members, if you really don't feel comfortable, then you need to say, I don't feel comfortable being the one chosen to be on there. Because the mayor is the one that normally appoints the council's members to these commissions or the authorities. So I think that we need to be very clear to Mayor Cuffey that if you don't want to be on there, don't appoint me.
Yeah, And I guess the point I'm trying to make is I was quite impressed with the existing members of the authority, with the knowledge that they had with the operations and management of the airport. And like I said, I know there were concerns that came up that initiated this whole process, but I don't know how much it needed to be reworked.
Yeah, go ahead, Gary, I'm
I'm
sorry.
good, thanks.
The whole issue stems way back when we put the authority together. We put some language in there that maybe should have been looked at a second time, and we didn't do that way back. When we do this, I don't remember how many years, more than 20 years ago, I know that, when that became a reality, that Joint Powers Board. So the pleasure, we've had a motion on the floor with a second, correct, Tim? Oh, I'm sorry, Steve, I missed you there.
Thank you. I struggle with this because the thing I kept hearing from our meetings was that the current airport authority board was not listening to the city saying, this is how you need to do things. They came to this room and said, but when MnDOT has been very specific, and I'll go to the grass strip on Ely Lake, it's not usable, end of discussion, close it. And for 2 years, it's been mowed. I just drove by there 2 weeks ago, and the pile of dirt that they didn't get permission to dump on city property is now being spread out. So there is work being done at the south end of the grass strip that is not supposed to be used. They're filling in, and it's fresh. And I don't know, to me, that's where I'm stuck at, is that there is a group of people not listening to the city say stop. We had to put a fence up so it couldn't be used, and they were mad about there being a fence put up. The cities decided together to put a fence on city property, and the airport authority said, you better make sure your insurance is good. That was a scare tactic. It's a city property. The cities jointly own it through the airport commission, but the cities individually are the ultimate authority, and that's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at, their knowledge is incredible. Yes, they all know how to run airplanes, they all fly airplanes, and that's a concern to me that there's nobody on that board currently who doesn't have a vested interest in the airport, that has an interest as the city, that says, okay, this is what the cities need. And that's why I'm being supportive of this whole process, because the city voice that they are appointed by, they serve at the pleasure of the city, and they seem to forget that. Even when they were here, they were very pointed about, this is what we did and this is why we did it. And not once did they say, and we should be listening more to the city. And I think that's why we're doing this. And once it gets straightened out, we have the ability to change the agreements to add more people or less people. That's all stuff can change with councils as we move forward. This isn't a forever and done thing, just like the previous one wasn't. But I think that when I listen to our staff feeling frustration when they're at a meeting and their professional position is not being validated and respected as as an employee, as a city of Virginia, that's a huge problem for me as a city councilor. Our staff are very professional and they know what they're doing, and to have it questioned regularly is not acceptable to me. So I will be completely supporting this, and I will be willing to sit on that board so that our staff can do their job correctly.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? Maya or Julianne?
Hey, Charlie.
Go ahead, Councilor Paulson.
Thank you. So Britt, this new joint powers agreement supersedes the original one from the 1950s, and any addendums or amendments, I think there was maybe one or two in the 70s. So this will be the new agreement based off of to replace the old one. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then just, would it be possible to get the old one in our packet during the council so that if there ever needs to be a reference point of the old one versus the new one, that it would be in one packet?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, Maya, did you have any more comment?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. With that, is there any more comment for discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, my eye is reluctant, but we can make changes. Okay. Okay, motion carries, Pam. Okay,
Go back up to item number 8, discuss the painting the crosswalks at Second Avenue and Fifth Street. We do have Bill Hennis, Public Works Director here.
Mr. Hennis, you want to come up and address us on the crosswalks? I know the reason I.
Question is, Bill, they were wondering why why Second Avenue doesn't have any crosswalks. Is there a reason why?
Well, let me turn mine on.
Well, we've never put sidewalks first, we've never had a request for one. And two is the former school policy was that all the young kids were all bused to school. So, I mean, it was either bus or drop-off, so before we never had a population of children coming from the 100 block across Second Avenue. And I don't know if that policy is now changed at the school or what that, or if it's just this one person that wants to walk.
Maybe, Britt, what we should do, we should contact the school district first and get some information of where the buses pick up, as I know they pick up down in an area, because I've seen them picking up down in that area. Before we actually make a decision, can we just put this on hold and do a little more research and just send a note back to the individual? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I think there actually should be a couple of crosswalks just for the sake of argument that there are no crosswalks to get from First Avenue to the rest of the city. And we've put them in other well-traveled places. And as a parent, they want as many people not riding the bus as possible right now. That's really the drop-off. By the way, the drop-offs at Parkview have gotten much better after a week, so we're good there. But overall, I think that having one or two strategically placed crosswalks in between the two intersections and Highway 53, one on maybe halfway between each, would then indicate that, yes, you have the ability to cross, and maybe that would funnel people to there. But I would refer back to the staff to figure out what that looks like. Because if historically we haven't done it, just because, I'd want to be very careful about why that because is with Second Avenue, especially as we're looking forward to potential, maybe someday some other development on Second Avenue, and get those established now would be good. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Friedland.
I guess I would echo those sentiments also, because there isn't anything there. And I guess, do you have the manpower to mobilize to do so, at least for this request? And what kind of costs would we incur for being able to accomplish that task, give or take?
Well, we have a window now within about the next month, because they have to be painted and the signs have to be ordered. You're probably looking at a couple $100 per crosswalk initial, because you gotta buy signs and signposts to make them legal. And then we'd pick whatever intersections that you would want us to do, whether you wanna take, for example, we have a light on Chestnut and A Street, so do you want one on Fourth? You really only have 4 blocks from A Street to the highway, being 12th Street being our last one. You'd have to decide if you want another one, in that 4-block stretch too. Again, we only put them in by council direction, so we need to know where they ultimately go, and not just put 2 of them, because we only put in by city directive for those.
And it is obviously a timely issue with the start of school right now, and this is to accommodate a request by a resident with regard to safety concerns, which for her own child, I'm assuming? I don't know.
I think it was a grandchild.
Okay, right.
If the ideal locations, the 8th Street lights would be one that's automatic, I would think, because you got light control there also. And then somewhere, I kind of agree with Bill, going further south to 53, there's a lot of distance. I don't know how many people, but going north toward Chestnut Street, put 1 or 2 in from 8th Street, at the junctions there, and maybe where the one-way goes by the post office, some in there, but that's my opinion.
Also, one thing I'd ask too that you consider, how do you want the scenario laid out? Are you looking at a full intersection block off for crosswalks, which means all 4 streets and avenues coming in get a crosswalk, or are you just looking, an east to west crosswalk in those areas?
The request was for an east to west to come, to school. So that would minimize the cost, I would think, too, also.
Yeah, because we'd have less painting.
So we just move this, Steve, go ahead, I'll let you take this.
I also, I think about the people that are living on the 100 block from the highway to Chestnut. A lot of those are multifamily residents, converted old homes to multifamily residents, and how many of those have small children? There are no parks on the 100 block, so putting a crosswalk in down around 12th Street so they can cross over to go to Southside Park. Further up, they walk up the street somewhere 6th Avenue, 5th Avenue, or 5th Street, where they can cross over, and now they can get over to City Hall, they can get to the banks, they can get to, so I really think that, and I'm going out on a limb here, but I would, there are a lot of people walking. I've done the ride-alongs at night. There's a lot of people walking in the summer at night up and down 2nd Avenue. So I think this is timely, and I really had never considered this. So I would like to see us, my suggestion would be, since you asked, the east-west only, one right around 11th or 12th Street South to get over so those folks have access to the park and Southside Park, and then one farther up 5th Street, 4th Street, so there's access to get to downtown before they get to downtown, because if we're trying to get them to follow the rules, coming down to Chestnut Street and then coming back to the county building is a big loop. They're not gonna do that. They're gonna cut over Kitty Corner. So, and I would like to, if we are gonna order the signs, I would prefer that we get the flashing light ones that say there's a crosswalk here, because they're gonna be new and people haven't seen crosswalks on 2nd Avenue ever. So I would think that that would be worth an investment for us. And this would be one of my things, is that a COVID expense? Now we're encouraging people to walk and you be outside. Is there some possible funding or some creative way of paying for it? Because I can tell that's already a budget, but I'd like to see us be able to figure out ways to accommodate those folks.
If I recall right, Bill, those flashing signs are quite expensive. I can't remember in the
If
thousands
I
of
remember
bucks.
right, because the only ones we really have is the ones that we put on 4th Street North. If I remember right, they were close to $1,000 a sign. And that's ones that we could actually find street posts with power. I mean, if we have to go solar, it'd be considerably more.
Steve's suggestion, I would say 11th Street, because that's a direct route. 12th Street gets dumped off, it doesn't go all the way through. But 11th Street is the one that goes nicely through to the park, to 5th Avenue. That would be one area I would see for a crosswalk, because there is quite a bit of walking down in that area. Then the 8th Street would be the other, where the lights are. And then somewhere, let staff decide in between, Bill, for at least another one toward Chestnut Street. At least one more.
Charlie, I guess what I'd say just right off the cuff would be 11th Street South on the south side,
Yeah.
which is a direct route, and away from the shortstop there, so they're not in that congested part of that intersection. 8th Street South, I guess we wouldn't paint it all, because that is a fully controlled with
Okay.
crossing there. And then again, pick 4th or 5th Street if you want to go in the middle, and we do one there. So I think they can all work. It's just the question if you're going to get the people to go that far to actually, use that crosswalk. But we can sign them all, we can put them all in. Again, we just need a directive from you where you want them specifically, again, so we have that directive from you.
Why don't we, Brett, let staff, along with Bill, look at those and bring something back for the council meeting on Tuesday? I think we can make a decision by then. Okay? Is that acceptable to everyone?
Thank you very much, Bill. I appreciate your input.
Okay. So we don't need an action item on this other than have staff bring back something for the council meeting.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Brett.
We're down to item number 10, the final item, review the appraisal for purchase of property parcels on 3rd Street, 3rd Avenue North. You will recall this was from a previous meeting. We had received an offer for a purchase of the 3 lots for $10,000, and we have the appraisal in the packet, and this meeting can be closed and probably should be closed for negotiations land transaction.
I agree with that comment. With that, before we go to a closed session, because we have another item too besides, don't we, for closed session, or is this the only one?
Another item that's not necessarily just something I want to bring up, nothing noticeable.
Okay, all right. Is there anything else anyone wants to bring up before we close out this portion of the committee of the whole meeting? Maya?
Good, thank you.
Okay, Julianne?
Would it be possible for maybe Britt to call both Councilor Beyondich and myself?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay.
I really appreciate that.
Not a
Thank you
problem.
so much.
Thank you.
Okay, then this committee of the whole meeting is adjourned at, recessed. You're correct, because we have to come back into open session. So recess it at 11:15. And we'll